It's a new year, but has the housing market changed? That's what we're going to dive into in today's video. My name is Jeb Smith. We're going to talk about expectations for the 2021 housing market for buyers, for sellers, and also for those sellers who are also buyers. We're going to give you a recap of 2020. We're going to talk about some of the things that drove the housing market last year and how the year ended and how that's actually going to play a part in how we start this year. We're also going to talk about forbearances, foreclosures, evictions, and how all of that will likely play a part in the 2021 housing market. But before we do that, I want to take a minute and ask a favor. If you're new to me, new to my channel, it's all about real estate, so do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. So let's start today's video by giving you a recap of 2020. What drove that housing market? What factors played into it that made it an even stronger housing market? How did we end the year? And how is all of that going to play a part in 2021? So as of March of last year, I did a video, which I'll link to here, where I talked about a very strong housing market. We came into the year with very low supply, high buyer demand, much like we saw all year, but we started the year with that. The pandemic didn't create that. We came into the market with very low supply and high buyer demand. Little did we know there would be a pandemic in March that would change things. So we had two of the slowest months on record in March and April, which tend to be some of the stronger months of the year with regards to the housing market. But as stimulus came out, there were bans on evictions and foreclosures, and we had the mortgage forbearance that was allowed by lenders to allow homeowners to miss or skip their mortgage payments and pay them at a later time. The housing market started to recover. A lot of people, were locked in their houses. A lot of people were able to work remotely. And so with that, you had people using their home as their safe place, which is normally the case, but even more so during a pandemic. So people sought out shelter, and with that they sought out buying a property to live in, somewhere they felt comfortable. In some cases, people needed to upgrade, and in some places people were renting and they wanted to own something. You had people that were commuting before that no longer had to commute, and now they could buy in areas they wouldn't consider before. So the housing market really took off in 2020. And because there was an eviction and foreclosure moratorium, and there were, additional stimulus added to the market and forbearance and all of that, you saw a lot of people that would normally be in a very, very hard place have to sell their property, potentially foreclose on their property, get evicted from their property. That didn't happen in 2020. And as we progressed through the year, inventory got less and less. Buyer demand continued to pick up because interest rates continued to get lower. In fact, we ended the year at the lowest interest rates in history. Every month last year, we kept getting updates that interest rates were getting lower and lower. And at the end of the year, we actually ended at the low. But we also ended at the low with regards to supply. So here in Huntington Beach, where I'm located, we're a town of 205,000 or so people. We have 150 active homes on the market as of today. In Orange County, 3.3 million people. We have around 2,600 homes on the market. So not a lot of supply out there. And because there are still moratoriums on evictions and foreclosures, people are still in mortgage forbearance, or still allowed to take mortgage forbearance, that is keeping properties off the market. That, in addition to the pandemic that is still out there. The vaccine has come out, and while it seems to be effective, enough people haven't gotten it yet to really know. And so, here in Orange County, where I'm located, hospitals are at full capacity. They have, small shelters set out for other people. And so there are people scared to sell their home because they don't want people walking through their home during this pandemic, during everything that's going on. So you've got those properties that are being kept off the market. You've got people that are now, have refinanced into lower interest rates than they've ever seen in their life. So their mortgage payment is more affordable than ever. So those people aren't selling their houses. And so it's going to be a couple of weeks to potentially months before you start to see inventory really pick up. I think the pandemic has to get under control. The vaccine has to be effective. We have to get past the normal flu season, the normal cold season, where people are worried, about getting sick. And so as we get past that, which my prediction is probably sometime in March, you're going to start to see more and more homes come to the market. As those homes come to the market, you're going to see buyer demand accelerate because interest rates are going to remain low. Properties are going to go very quickly. So if you're a buyer and you're considering buying a property, I'm not telling you to buy a property. As a real estate agent, I'm not saying you should buy a property. I'm saying if you are buying a property, make sure not only are you patient, but you have your ducks in a row. You've done your pre-approval, you're working with a professional real estate agent, you're ready to go when that property presents itself. Because if you're not, chances are somebody else will be. Expect to be in multiple offer situations. Expect to have to go above the asking price in some cases if the property's priced right. Those are what you should come into this year expecting. As a seller, it's going to be a very, very good year for you if you price your home at fair market value. If you're thinking that you're going to sell it for well above the asking price, chances are that's not going to happen. But if you price it correctly, there's very little competition out there. Chances are you're going to sell it for more money and likely with multiple offers. And that is going to continue through most of the year. Now, if you're one of those sellers who's also a buyer, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really good on one side where you're able to sell your property, get multiple offers, likely sell above asking. That's going to be really good. But as a buyer, it's going to be tough because then you have to turn around and buy another property. And in that case, you're going to be on the other side of the coin. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to put in multiple offers. You're going to have to go above the asking. It's just going to be one of those scenarios that's not ideal. And I can say that because I have clients right now that are in that position. They've been in escrow for 2 months. And they're having a very hard time getting their offer accepted on the buy side, just because, for one, there's not a lot of property out there. So they're not looking at a lot of property or bidding on a lot of property. But the ones they do bid on, there's been multiple offers. We've gone well above the asking price and still not getting our offer accepted. So it's going to be a catch-22. So you're probably asking yourself, what happens when the moratorium's in with evictions and foreclosures? What happens when mortgage forbearance ends? So let's take a minute and talk about mortgage forbearance. What happens when mortgage forbearance ends? Well, what we've seen so far is that the large majority of people leaving forbearance are actually performing on their loans. Very few people are actually in default. A large majority have either, come out of forbearance and continue to make their payments on time or refinance out of that loan or sold that property. But I believe the latest numbers were 2% of the people coming out of mortgage forbearance were actually in default. So a very, very small number. And keep in mind, mortgage forbearance doesn't mean that you have to make all these lump sum payments at one time. The lenders are giving people payment options. They're working with people. So, there are going to be options for homeowners who have experienced hardship to make their mortgage payments. Not every single person coming out of mortgage forbearance is going to foreclose like a lot of people think. In fact, the majority aren't, because we're already seeing that they're performing on their loans. Well, what happens when evictions and foreclosures end? Well, right now, there's a moratorium until the end of January. It could be extended further, which we don't know if that's actually going to happen, but let's say that it doesn't happen. Well, you're going to see some foreclosures and evictions hit the market. You can't start the foreclosure proceedings or the eviction proceedings until, I believe, 30 days after the moratorium's up. So that's going to push it until the end of February. In states like California that are very tenant friendly, it's going to take months, years in some cases to work through all of this. So, these properties are going to come to the market, but they're not going to come to the market in some huge foreclosure wave or, this one big drop to the market. The housing market isn't going to drop overnight. It takes time for things to change. And that's what you're going to see this year. You're going to see a slow start to the year, as we've talked about before, just because of low inventory. It's going to pick up into the spring market, which is normal. It's going to be thriving through the summer, and you're likely going to see another slowdown towards the end of next year, just like we saw this year. It's cyclical, and this is a normal occurrence for the housing market. So, if you're considering buying, make sure you're patient. As I've mentioned many, many times, it's not going to be, a year where you're just able to put in an offer, get it accepted, and everything's rosy. It's going to be tough for buyers. And I'm just trying to be realistic so you have proper expectations. In some cases, maybe you get your offer accepted the first time. I would just go into the year with proper expectations. And if it ends up being rosy, fantastic. If it ends up being a little more difficult, at least you went in with the idea of what to expect and you're not completely shocked. But as we get more information on foreclosures, on evictions, on mortgage forbearance, how all of that's playing a part into the 2021 housing market, I'll continue to give you my thoughts. But for now, that's where we are. This isn't me telling you to buy a house or sell a house. I'm just trying to provide you information with someone who has boots on the ground that's helping buyers, helping sellers on a daily basis. But for now, that's where we're at. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I appreciate your support. We'll hope to see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.